Let me take you to Parliament because the minority there is demanding the immediate withdrawal of the imposition of the Restrictions Bill 2020, insisting it does not meet the requirement of urgent business. Well, at a meeting of the Constitution and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament today, the NDC MPs insisted the bill does not deal with the issue of coronavirus spread, but then it restricts freedom broadly and should not be rushed through the House. Now, this law has become necessary, as you know, as a result of government's push to contain the spread of COVID-19. The following News Desk report teases out some portions of the imposition of Restrictions Bill 2020.
All public gatherings, including
President Akufo-Addo announcing he had asked the Attorney General to ensure that a law is laid before Parliament in accordance with Article 21 to give legal backing to its directives on public gatherings.
I've directed the Attorney General to submit immediately to Parliament emergency legislation in accordance with Article 21, 4C and D of the Constitution of the Republic to embody these measures. And I further directed the Minister for Health to exercise his powers under Section 169 of the Public Health Act 2012, Act 851, by the immediate issuance of an executive instrument to govern the relevant profession.
The memorandum of the bill explains what it seeks to achieve.
The purpose of the bill is to provide powers to impose restrictions on persons in the event of a disaster, emergency, or similar circumstances to ensure public safety and protection.
It continues.
Government finds it expedient to develop a legal framework to provide generally for expeditious interventions by the government in the event of an unforeseeable emergency.
Clause 3 of the bill lists the restrictions the President may impose.
Restrictions in the interest of defense, public safety, public health, or running of essential services, restrictions reasonably required on movement or residence within Ghana and entry into Ghana.
Clause 3D is what some NDC MPs find worrying. It reads,
the restriction is reasonably required for the purpose of safeguarding the people of Ghana against the teaching or propagation of doctrine which exhibits or discourages disrespect for nationhood of Ghana, the national symbols and emblems, or incites hatred against other members of the community.
Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak says this is unacceptable.
I mean, there's no mention of coronavirus, and I also think it's too broad, and it's like wanting to give the president an unlimited or a blank check. I don't think that's good for our democracy.
It's worth noting that the 5-page bill is largely a reproduction of Article 21 of the Constitution. The controversial Clause 3D is actually a reproduction of Article 21, Clause 4, subsection C of the 1992 Constitution. It remains to be seen what changes Parliament will make once it begins consideration of the bill.
The House is expected to debate later today a report of the committee on whether to rush the bill, so to speak. Now, a member of the committee, Roxanne Dafiamakbo, says the minority will not support it. He says the bill is structurally flawed.
Those of us in the minority, we are of the opinion that the bill as presented does not demonstrate any agency for purposes of which we have to consider it under urgent circumstances. This is because there is nowhere in the bill that coronavirus is mentioned. They only brought a bill regarding broad emergency powers to be given to the president. And we think that they ought to be very specific. Because if you enact a bill into a law, giving the president broad emergency powers, any unscrupulous president can misapply it. That's one. Then number two, there are structural issues with the bill. They seek, if you look at clause 2, they seek to create offenses and penalties provision in an executive instrument, which is never done in law. It is only a statute of parliament, an act of parliament that can create offending conducts, or that can create a statute that will criminalize certain conducts. and prescribe sanctions for it. But this government wants to come up with an executive instrument that will give the president power to create offenses and create penalties for same.
So at today's meeting, the eventual decision that the committee took is that what? This bill will be taken under a certificate of urgency?
Yes, that is in the opinion of the chairman, but they failed to demonstrate that. And now they are saying that they brought it to Parliament and we have power to tinker with it. But we cannot draft a bill that will depart from the tenor of the memorandum. So if they indeed are amenable to our position, which they agree to, then the bill has to be withdrawn. The memorandum has to be improved to accommodate COVID-19 and other emergency situations, which I think that every member of Parliament, every single citizen in this country is in support of. We are all in support of what the president has done. But to seek to bring a bill that appears to be a twin of Preventive Detention Act or Protective Custody Act to give president broad powers is untenable.
So if we get withdrawn
under Article 31 of the Constitution, there are already provisions for the president to proceed to do what he did under emergency powers. The president has already given directives, which directives are already being observed, has already given directives, which directives are already being observed. So there's nothing urgent about considering this bill to give president any power for him to be able to act.
But if it gets withdrawn, then it's delaying the process. They say they would want to get the necessary support to deal with it.
That is also the mischief. The president has already exercised executive power. Okay, anchored for me, in my opinion, anchored under Articles 31 and 21. If you look at Article 21, Clause 4, C, the president can impose restrictions. He's done that. So that has already been spent. So what other urgent matters does the president require other powers to be able to exercise? None. The bill doesn't show it. It doesn't demonstrate that.
So in its current state, then they can count on your support to have it as urgent business and even to get this document
at all.
And when are we expecting the report of the committee on the floor?
Should be ready later today.
Nelson Dafiamapo there, but the Deputy Attorney General Joseph Kwemka has been defending provisions in the bill. He says government believes that this bill in its current state is the best for the country at the moment, but then it can't be improved by Parliament if the House wishes to.
I told you that the president is not operating in a vacuum. He's operating within a legal framework. And if we do pass this into law, and then it is being implemented and anybody finds that the president is abusing the law or his discretionary power, can go for a pronouncement by a court to declare that to the extent that the president's conduct or actions are contrary to statute or law or the constitution, then to that extent they are a nullity. You can go for that pronouncement. You see, we are not living in a totalitarian state. We are living in a state governed by rules and regulations. And remember that Article 1(2) of the Constitution says that any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution is to the extent of the inconsistency a nullity. So any person who thinks that what we are doing is a nullity can go and challenge it in court after we have passed it into an act. But I am saying that it is in response to an extraordinary circumstance that we are bringing this.
Which is that because the concern from the minority is that the bill itself doesn't mention anything having to do with the coronavirus situation, and that these are issues that the Public Health Act could have dealt with expeditiously.
I have given them an answer to that. You see, laws, as I've already indicated a short while ago, why do we enact legislation? We do it purposely to be able to fill in a lacuna that has been created. That's the purpose of enacting legislation. And we are saying that nobody ever anticipated corona. I did not anticipate it, and I know you did not. Now, this has sprung a surprise on us. And going into the future, another thing I want to draw your attention to is that you never know what the future holds for all of us. Whether or not, after we've overcome corona, there are others that will come up in future. We are not aware of that. So this is futuristic. So that we don't do knee-jerk reaction to situations when they arise. we are doing this in contemplation that any other future thing that will arise will be contemplated by this and will be covered by this, so that we don't go looking for making any other laws. And laws are made to address those situations.
Now, Honorable, I've seen that going through the bill, I've seen that the bill is giving the president the option
consequences in the bill before it is passed into law. We will have to introduce clauses that will, sections that will actually criminalize what His Excellency the President has actually issued as directives, and then the punishments prescribed for it. And remember that if you read Article 1911 of our Constitution, it states that you cannot take a person or charge a person with an offense that did not constitute an offense at the time it was committed. So we are doing this to address all that, so that we make sure that we will, in debating it, of course, you are aware, I mean, most of you here are very well experienced, that we are not a conveyor belt. When they bring these things, we scrutinize them and do amendments, delete, insert, and all that. So I can assure you that we will be doing the necessary amendments here to ensure that we capture clearly certain actions and the penal consequences that are accompanying those actions.
The minority wants the bill withdrawn. Roxin Dafiama says it doesn't meet the status of urgent business. And so, unless government demonstrates that they will not support the idea of it being taken.
The determination as to whether or not a particular bill is of an urgent nature is not by one member of parliament. So that individual, that's his opinion. It is the committee.
That's the minority.
The committee will determine by either consensus or by majority that this is the decision. It is urgent, it is not urgent. And I know that a decision has already been taken, but it has not been brought to the floor, and I'm unable to disclose that now. It will be brought to the floor and debated.
So it will be a case of the majority using your numbers to push it through despite the minority's concern.
What if some of the members of the majority are persuaded by arguments from the majority? Some minority members may be persuaded when they listen to the arguments. As I have stated, I mean, we are not in ordinary times, and we have to go extraordinary to address the situation for the safety of Ghanaians.
But do you admit that there are problems?
Deputy Attorney General Mr. Kwemka there. Let's go to Parliament live now with Joseph Opoku Gakpo, our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. Hello, Joseph. I'm hoping that the House at this point, or people in Parliament, may have heard about the latest development, that 2 more cases have been recorded.
Well, on the floor of the House itself, it's not a conversation that has actually come up. The House has been dealing with a number of other issues. Just to mention that a while ago, I spotted the Health Minister on the floor, Kwekwajiman Menu. He's also a Member of Parliament, so I'm sure he came in as an MP to represent his people and to do parliamentary business. I spotted him on the floor, but the House has been discussing a number of issues, including the Vienna Convention, which is something that they worked to approve. Earlier in the day, they approved a loan facility for the Takrade market, and they've been doing a number of other businesses. The Education Minister was on the floor of the House earlier today to respond to questions in connection with Get Fund and the new curriculum. But the point you raise right now about 2 additional cases being recorded is not a conversation that has come up on the floor of the House at all as we speak yet.
What we do know, by the way, is that the minority does not agree with the way that this law is being passed, this law, the details or the content of this law which is being passed to restrict movement. The majority believes it is the right way to go at the moment. So both sides have raised their argument. Usually or typically, what will be the next step?
So what happened this morning was that the Constitution and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament, which is actually chaired by the MP for Finso South, Ben Abdallah, met, and there was a 1-item agenda for that meeting to come to a determination whether that bill that has been brought is actually something that's of urgent nature, which would mean that Parliament can then waive all the other requirements, including a requirement that says before the executive can bring a bill to the House, it should have been put out and gazetted for at least 14 days. And then when it's laid and it's referred to a committee, the House can only debate it after 48 hours after the committee actually brings its report. Those are all requirements that are stipulated in the standing orders. But the only way that the House can waive all of that is to determine the issue or pass the bill under certificate of urgency. At that one item agenda meeting earlier today, the minority insisted that they think there is nothing urgent in this bill. It makes no specific reference to the issue of coronavirus, they say, hence making it even not more urgent. They say the concerns that have come up with public health is something that can be addressed with the Public Order Act. So apart from Roxy Nafiamekpo, who is a member of the committee, other minority MPs, including the leadership of the minority on the committee, have indicated that they are objecting to the idea that this issue be brought with, as a under certificate of urgency. So, any moment from now, what we are expecting is the chairman of the committee will bring a report to the House. We gather that the committee's report will make a recommendation that the House actually looks at the issue of the bill as an urgent matter, but it will report that the minority insists that it shouldn't have been so. So it will be a case of the majority using their votes to actually take over the process and push it through as an issue of urgent business. And then on the floor, if that debate actually goes down the road, then chances are that the House may have to vote if the minority insists on a vote count with regards to that. So all of that is expected to unfold a little later in the day. A while ago, the majority leader, Sechi Mensah-Bonsu, indicated that they are suspending sitting in the House for the next hour or so in order to allow for the Committee on Constitutional and Legal Affairs to finish their report. They ended the meeting about 3 hours ago, but the committee report itself is being put together. And when it's ready, MPs will reconvene on the floor, and then they will debate as to whether this issue should be taken as urgent business. If the determination of the House is that it's urgent business, then they would continue with the process in order to get the approval. If that idea is shut down, then maybe the bill would have to be withdrawn as is being demanded by the minority in Parliament. But all of that is still something that we would know more on in the next hour or two when the House resumes from its suspension, which has actually taken effect as we speak.
Well, Joseph, we will come to you then. Hopefully, the members of Parliament would have heard about the latest development and probably will have some reactions on that as well. Joseph, thank you. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, bringing us up to speed. Now, what we know is that the Parliament is trying to lay this bill and pass it into law to restrict movement of people in this pandemic. But we're getting that blockades coming in there. The concerns being raised by the minority that how it will be addressed, we'll wait to see as and when we get over to Joseph again. But